And do you think if anything bad happens to it, like you mentioned the geopolitical tensions, do you think that the United States should help?
Yeah, I do. With with China like possibility of invading, I do think the United States should step in and stuff.
I don't know. I feel like it's definitely something that the U.S. would have to get involved with. Question of how, I don't know. And I would hope that people would not have to die before.
I think the U.S. certainly has an interest in protecting democracy abroad, but I think that policymakers should be wary of getting.
我是节目主持人斯坦，欢迎各位收看。我现在在 Providence, Rhode Island 这里的 Brown College。那我要采访这边的学生，他们对台湾的了解有多少？然后他们认为，如果台湾发生三长两短的事情，美国应不应该来帮忙？出发吧。What comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
I guess British colonialism. I'm not that familiar with it, to be honest. Yeah.
Taiwan used to be a Japanese colony, though. No, yeah. No, not a British one.
Over by Britain, or
no. They have, and you know, right now they have some issues with China, and China is saying that they belong to them. Do you think if Taiwan asks for help and if anything bad happens, the U.S. should come to help?
To be honest, no.
Oh, why?
I don't know. I just feel like the U.S. just needs to take some time to not step into other people's business, you know. We've just done too much to kind of involve ourselves with other people's business at this point that is just unnecessary.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
Taipei.
Taipei. What do you think about Taipei?
I heard there's a tower with a pendulum there, and it's very, very cool. And most of my friends are from Taiwan. So, yeah, I have maybe not the deepest connection, but I have some connections to it.
Yeah, Taipei 101. The building is called Taipei 101.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you know what drink that's very popular in the US right now comes from Taiwan?
I actually do not.
Boba tea.
Oh,
Bubble tea, yeah,
it's
a Taiwanese thing. Okay, and do you know that right now there are some tensions like in the area? And do you think if Taiwan is in danger, the United States or Taiwanese allies should help?
Sure. I think that would be a good idea if they help, always. Although, of course, you know, there's like a ripple effect all the time. But, you know, it'd be a good idea, always.
Okay. What comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
I think about Taiwanese opera, the Taiwanese film industry, but there is also that elephant in the room of like the current geopolitical situation in there, which is making things kind of tense. Which is sad because it kind of overshadows like those first two things I talked about earlier that I'm passionate about and I think are cool.
You mentioned the geopolitical situation. Do you think that if anything bad happens, the US and Taiwanese allies should come and help?
I do think that because I think like if like national sovereignty is violated anywhere, that has like generally international implications, especially if like one of the players is someone like China, who has like obviously such a broad reach on the world stage. So I do think it is both our moral obligation and even on just like a selfish realpolitik level, it would probably be more beneficial in the long run to try to protect our allies in that sense.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
I have a friend from high school who's Taiwanese, so she would visit her grandmother there, and so that reminds me of her. I know Taipei, I think that's how you say it, is like a city in Taiwan that we get a lot of like trade from across the Pacific. So I think about that. And then for your second question, should the U.S. get involved if like tensions rise in Taiwan? I think yeah, because the U.S. is there's such a magnifying glass like on the U.S. in the world, and we have like a lot of progress in a lot of ways that I think we should like, I don't know, in some ways help like uplift the same values, I guess. And thank you so much. Thank you.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
I have a friend from Brown actually, and he's from Taiwan. He's an international student. Super sweet guy, and he travels there a lot to go back home. And he showed me pictures a few times of like pretty mountains and just warm climates, and that's what I think of. And then the second question was...
If anything bad happens to Taiwan, like the geopolitical tensions rise, do you think the US should help?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think the US has kind of a responsibility as like like someone else said, like we have a lot of eyes on us, and it's our responsibility to help take care of help other countries who are democratic. That perspective of how the U.S. has a lot of resources to help but hasn't been, and I could understand how that would be the same situation for another country too.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the Taiwanese semiconductor industry, especially with all the onshoring right now in the U.S. and the focus on domestic semiconductor manufacturing and the tech industry in Taiwan and how critical that is to the global industry. And I also think of the kind of heating U.S.-China competition and the role that Taiwan plays and the interest that the U.S. has in Taiwan as a lot of U.S. politicians are kind of talking about China rising as a competitor on the global stage.
And do you think, you just mentioned geopolitical tensions, do you think if anything bad happens to Taiwan, they should come and help?
I think the U.S. certainly has an interest in protecting democracy abroad, but I think that policymakers should be wary of getting involved in a global conflict with China. I think that would be a dangerous thing for the world. But I do think there's some analogies to be drawn with the case of Ukraine, that the U.S. should be on the global stage trying to defend a rules-based international order and prevent incursions. Obviously, Taiwan's sovereignty is disputed, but I think it's important to make sure that we're keeping other global powers in their place and making sure that they're not threatening the stability of democracy.
All right. So, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
Well, I feel like the first thing that comes to my mind is I think of, I don't know the technical terms, so don't dock me on this, but I know like a lot of chip manufacturing is in Taiwan, and I know that it's independent from China, so it's kind of like the U.S.'s ally in the like South China Sea area, or actually no, it's like more
like in the Pacific.
Yeah, Pacific area. And I know that a lot of our chip manufacturing, we rely on Taiwan for a lot of our like iPhones, stuff like that.
Oh, you know a lot. You don't have to be so shy.
I don't know any of the technical stuff, but I know that like it's an important, like if we lose Taiwan, we lose a lot of our like chip manufacturing.
Yeah, you lose your iPhone basically. And you just mentioned the geopolitical tensions, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that if anything bad happens to Taiwan, the US should come and help?
I think it's a hard question. I do think that I don't know the specifics of our relationship with Taiwan as far as like the history of it, but I do think that if it's like, well, I mean, I guess the question is what bad, like what is the bad thing that happens is like the Chinese
an invasion
government
from China, for example.
Because the tricky thing with that is if an invasion, then we're starting a world war, which is not a great idea. But at the same time, if we lose Taiwan, I don't know, it's a hard question. I think that the U.S., I definitely think economically the U.S. should get involved. I don't know if the U.S. should put, like, I don't think putting troops on the ground in Taiwan is a great idea for anybody.
Maybe providing weapons, like with Ukraine?
Yeah, I definitely think something like that would, I don't know, I feel like if China was to monopolize the chip manufacturing and the precious metals market, it would just create like a worldwide monopoly that would very much hurt the U.S. and like everything from iPhones to like solar, like the solar panels too, right? Like it's a lot.
Yeah, they produce a lot of solar panels.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's definitely something that the U.S. would have to get involved with. Question of how, I don't know, and I would hope that people would not have to die for that. But geopolitics is, I don't know.
Yeah, it's complicated. Well, these words already. So, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
Firstly, I think of the political tensions with China, and I'd say the technology and stuff that they manufacture.
Okay. And do you think that Taiwan is the United States ally?
I do, yeah. A strong ally, I'd say.
And do you think if anything bad happens to it, like you mentioned, the geopolitical tensions, do you think that the United States should help?
Yeah, I do. With with China, like possibility of invading, I do think the United States should step in and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Taiwan?
Taiwan, I think of the semiconductor chips as well as geopolitical tensions in Asia.
Okay. So, do you think it's important to maintain such a partner in Asia?
I think it is, especially with China's role growing in the global landscape. That's important to have an ally for us there in that region, especially with our dependence on them for some technologies. So,
if anything bad happens to Taiwan, for example, if China invades, do you think the United States should come help?
I think they should, especially as an ally. We have that responsibility to help. I think it's really important for them to be independent, also for us on the global scale. So I think we should.